Okay, this is a recursive sequence. You have no clue how to put that in your calculator other than the cheat way, which is to put in a 30 and then say plus 7, enter, plus 7, enter, and then hit enter, 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 enter until you want to get to some big term, okay? That cheat way I showed you it's effective, it works, but it doesn't work well when you get to the big complicated ones. So you really need to and want to know how to put these into the calculator effectively. All right, so first let's talk through some terminology, like what does this mean? If I have this list of terms and I had got into 208, and then I added another 7 and got to 215, and I added another 7 and I got to 222, dot, dot, dot. This sequence, we don't even know what it started at. If I just grab some random term in it and say it's u sub 20, that's not likely to be right. If I'm picking some random term, I should call it u sub what? 10. And if I'm talking about some random term, this random term comes from the term in front of it plus 7. That's what this is saying to you. And term in front of it would be called u sub n minus 1. All right. So this is the starting term. And this is supposed to be an n, isn't it? U sub n, except we know by this first line that we have defined our smallest n is going to be 1. So our starting term, also known as our smallest n, also known as n min. Think about that for a second. These are the n's, right? Do you know what min means smallest? N min. All right, the reason I'm using all of this terminology is that in a moment in the calculator, it's going to ask you what n min is. What is it? And what is n min? N min is not 30. N min is 1. What is u sub 1? 30. What is the common difference? 7. If I'd been multiplying that by 7, it would have been called a common what? Okay. Now, it would be awesome if your calculator just actually asked you for, like, what's the starting amount? What's your common ratio? It doesn't. It has this really weird notation. So let's pull up your calculator. And first thing you got to do is we're talking about sequences, right? So we're going to go into sequence mode. First, I'm going to just clear off everything here. Wiped it down to a nice, clean, new calculator face. So I'm going to go into mode. And the fourth thing down, it's got func mode, which is what you're in right now. We want to go to SEQ, sequence mode. Then hit Y equals, and it should look like this. I'm going to say that again. You want to go into mode. You want to go to the fourth row down and put yourself into sequence mode. Not parametric, you don't even know what those are. Not polar, you don't know what those are. You will learn those if you take honors pre-calc next year. You'll learn what parametric and polar are. For now, you've done functions before. You know what functions are. Pass the vertical line test, all that stuff. But sequence is the topic du jour. So you choose sequence, hit enter, then hit the Y equals button. I'm leaving it red there, that button. And your screen should look similar to mine. Now, some of yours, it's slightly different. Some of yours, this will be a 1. Because n min is 1. See, look, n min is 1. And some of your calculators are smart enough to say, I'm just going to put the 1 right there. I just found that out today, that the latest version of the smartest software you can have on your calculator, if you got a TI-84 Plus, you can upload this from some kid in the class who's lucky enough to have that latest version of the software. So who in the class has got that neato deal where it doesn't say n min here, it says 1 right there? Somebody in here is going to have it. Oh, there he is. Everybody's going to be jealous of him because his is a little easier to enter than everybody else's. And if you want to, if you've got the newer calculator and you have to have a cable too, he can copy his operating system onto yours, and then you can have that software. But the TI-84s that weren't the Plus model, they don't have enough memory to handle that, and so therefore they can't handle that software. But if you have a TI-84 Plus or higher, I think you can get that from Mr. GL back there. Okay. So how do we put this in? Well, first of all, I already told you this one, and I hope you processed it. N-min means the smallest n, and you define that at the beginning by writing that top line. Do you have to start with 0 or 1? No, you could start with 0. And I've even seen it where they'll say U sub 2000 because they want to say in the year 2000 there were 30 people in this town, and it's grown because, like in North Dakota, for example, like 30 years ago, they didn't know there was oil. Actually, they knew there was oil, but they didn't think they'd ever be able to get it out because it's a special kind of oil that required, it was in the shale rock. And they were like, you couldn't just pump it out like normal. There were some people that got incredibly rich up in North Dakota because they owned the oil rights. And some people were like, they'll never be able to use that oil. That's useless. And so they'd sell their oil rights really cheap. And you could buy, not your neighbor's property, but you could buy their oil rights. Then, all of a sudden, they figured out how to frack, it's called. So back in the year 2000, you could have bought land in North Dakota super cheap and had all the oil underneath it. You could have owned the mineral rights. But people didn't know that that was about to boom, and all of a sudden, poof, the land is worth tons because all the oil underneath it. Okay, anyway, I'm just trying to say why we might not want to use 1. Sometimes we use a year right there. But I'm going to draw a line right here. And the right side is going to be where I'm going to put what we should put on our screen. The first question it asks is UN. No, it says, what does it say again? What's the first line? U parentheses N. That's it? I don't think that's the first line. I'm gonna question you on that. Oh, the first line says N min equals. That's the first line, the top line. N min equals. All right. So N min equals. You get to pick that. I know the calculator came with a 1 in there. That was the default. But you could change it, and you're going to have to change it. Even today, we're going to have ones that don't start with 1. This one, the N min is 1, so we do leave that as a 1. The next line does start with U parentheses N. That parentheses is your calculator's way of saying subscript. When they designed these calculators, they didn't have the ability to print subscripts on the screen. Since then, they've actually learned how to make subscripts, but it kept this system the same. The parentheses, that stands for sub. So when they write U parentheses N, they're saying U sub N. Doesn't that look a lot like how this line starts? U sub N equals, right? So what you type in is U. By the way, there's 2 U's, a capital and a lowercase. You want the lowercase u, it's above the 7. Find that U quickly. It's above the 7. U, and then you need parentheses to say sub N minus 1. And then we have to do something like add 7 every time. So I'm going to say plus 7. Yes, sir. The N is the same as the X key. It's up at the top near the alpha key. It's right by the alpha and the second key, kind of. X, T, theta. Yeah, that one. Now, you'll know if you did it right, and there'll probably be 5 of you that by accident do it slightly wrong. And what you'll do is you'll put your calculator next to somebody who did it right, and you'll look at them exactly side by side, and you go, oh, I see, I typed a parenthesis there, and you didn't. Or, you know what I mean? One common little mistake is some people use a minus key and some people use the negative key. And one works and one doesn't. Okay, so you need to put your calculator side by side and look at even things like, how does the minus sign look? Is this the minus sign or the negative sign? You should have used the minus sign. That means n minus 1, not the negative sign. Anyway, what is the one thing that our calculator, this is the calculator side here. Oops. Dyslexic again. There we go. The calculator side. What doesn't it know yet? We haven't told it something. The starting number, which was 30. We never told it 30. So, what is the third line of your calculator asking for? Would you read me the third line? And we just defined n-min a second ago, didn't we? We defined n-min as being 1. So, really they're asking for u sub 1. And that's what your calculator says right there, right? U sub 1 right there. Okay. And if we wanted what u sub 1 is, look, it's right here. So the third line is where you write the 30. And hit enter. Okay, now, one thing I want you to notice is there's more lines. Don't we need to fill those in? Nope. Think of it this way. When we hit the y equals button, don't you normally get a whole bunch of places to put y's, like y sub 1, y sub 2, y sub 3? Well, this top one we just did, that was the u function. The next next two lines would be the v function. The next two lines would be the w ones. Do you get what I'm saying? So you could put in 3 separate sequences here, all at the same time, and I recommend you never do that. You just keep your life simple. If you change problems, change the top 3 lines. Just only use the top 3 lines and just always use u sub. Because here, you'd have to do v sub n minus 1, and it gets so confusing whether it was a v or a u or whatever. So I just recommend, until you're really good at this, don't ever use those lines. Just use the top 3 lines. Okay? All right. Now that we put it in, let's see what it does. First, you got to understand that you don't have to hit, there's no save key. It's kind of like Google Docs. It's already saved. You don't have to worry about it. You can quit. You can even turn the calculator off, and it'll remember what you typed there. Okay? And I want you to go clear off your calculator and get a nice, clear, blank screen again. Okay? So go check and quit and get out. I'm going to pause and get my calculator caught up. Okay, there, I've got my in. Just to clarify, in case somebody at home is wondering what it should look like, it looks like that. And then I'm going to quit out of that. And nice clean screen. Guess what happens when I type u sub 5? Just before I even hit enter, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to tell me the 5th term. Hit enter. Boom, 5th term's 58. See how that's handy? Once you know how to operate it, it's a pain in the butt to learn how to operate it, but once you know how to do it, it's super easy from here. We'll change a bunch of stuff right now, and I know you're not awesome at this yet, but you will be by the end of the hour. You'll be able to be like, okay, so what are we starting with? What are we timesing by? Boom, I know what the 20th term is. It's easy. All right, what if I want the 20th term? U sub 20. And apparently it's 163. All right, at this point, there's usually somebody whose calculator's all messed up and it's not working. And the whole rest of the hour will be a waste. So I need to figure out who those people are and get them some help. So, to start with, in the back, would you please come up and sit up here? You're going to be sliding 6 inches apart from the person next to you and making sure their calculators look exactly like yours. These 2 rows, slide next to each other. These 2 rows, slide next to each other. Pogo, could you come up here and sit here? Slide next to him. You guys will work together. You're too good at this. You don't need a partner. I have one kid that decided just for fun to figure out what U sub 10,000 is. If you do that, your calculator has to do a lot of calculating. And so in the upper right-hand corner, have you ever seen this before? In the upper right-hand corner, I'll even do it and show you what happens. It's going to be loading, and then you're like, what, do I really have to wait forever? I'm going to make it ridiculous. I'm going to make it u sub 100,000 so that it'll for sure lock up. So it's thinking. Mine has a little like spinning yellow circle there. It says, I'm thinking. Do you know how to make that stop? You hit the on button. By hitting the on button, it interrupts it and does what's called breaks it. Okay, so if you ever get stuck in that loop where your calculator is going like, I'm working, and it just gets stuck, that probably will happen to 3 kids today because of what we're going to do in a minute. If it gets stuck like that, just hit the on button and that breaks it. One more thing, if you're wondering like what was wrong, do you see the little option go to? If that ever comes up on your screen, use it. Use the go to. And what that will do is it'll bring you to the area it was stuck at. So it'll, for instance, highlight, oh, this minus sign shouldn't be here. You know what I mean? It'll bring the cursor to the spot that it's having trouble at. So sometimes go to tells you what's going on. All right, so I'm going to go second quit. Next thing we want to explore is the table. Everybody hit second table. Now, crazy things are going to happen because, like, for instance, for me, I'm getting errors, and the kid next to me could be getting numbers there. Why? Because people's tables all start in different places. Mine might start at entry 1. In fact, mine actually started at entry -41. Who knew? Yours might start at 0. Your friends might start at 50. Okay, so how do we get them all to be the same? Please watch this next part. This is important. Go second above window is table set. And that will tell you the table settings. And that will tell you where should I start and what should I count by. My suggestion is always start it at 1 and always count by 1s. If you want to get fancy because you're really good at this, try counting by 0.1s. And it'll, every little entry on the table will be like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. You know what I mean? Or you can have it count by 2s if you're feeling fancy. And then I go to table, and my table counts by 2s now. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. See what I'm saying? All right. When will you ever use that? A lot. Because sometimes we start with u sub 0, and you want to see what 0 is. Sometimes we start with u sub 2019 for like this year. And that means you don't want your table to start until 2019. You don't want to see all as u sub 0, u sub 1, u sub 2. You want to start with 2019. All right, I think you get the idea. Now we're going back to our table and making our table settings start with normal things like count by 1s. That little triangle means change by. And I'm doing my table. If you understood what I just said, if you wanted the 60th entry, you could hit down arrow 40 some times, or what would be smarter? Change the table settings to start at 60. Do it. Change the table settings to start at 60. That way you're finding u sub 60. Do you get how this is almost as easy as going out to that other screen and typing u parentheses 60? Now, it might take a while because your calculator has to calculate every one of them all the way up to 60. It's doing 60 calculations before it's done. And there we go. So do you get, some kids aren't going to hear that, and they're going to ask you for the 105th term, and they're going to arrow down 105 times. That's kind of dumb, but it would work. Go to table settings and just change it to, let's go to 105. 105th term. What if you were like, oh crap, I messed something up. I want to stop my calculator in the middle of this because it's taking too long. What button do you push? On button. And it breaks it. Okay, did you get 750? Raise your hand if you got 750. Okay, good. Then looks like you're doing it right. Okay, so my question for you is, if I give you a sequence It's a little crazy. Do you think you could put it in and answer a question? That's the true test of do you know how to use the calculator. All right, so here's the true test. I have a sequence. It starts with 2. The next term is 28.6. And I can tell you it's geometric. My question is, what's the 6th term? All right, hint. Since I said 6th term, you should start with u sub 1 is 2. Could you have started with u sub 0? Yes. But if you want the 6th term, then u sub 6 would be the 6th term. I would start with u sub 1 is 2. And you don't really need to write this all out. You need to put it in the calculator. And you might be thinking, what the heck did he multiply by? You should be able to figure out the ratio. And by the way, it's not 1 point something. I'm like 95% sure it's not 1 point something. Because it's a ratio of these two numbers and hopefully divided them the correct way. Which one should go in first? What divided by what? 28.6 divided by the 2. So that should be like 14 point something, I think. Right? Okay. Oh, okay. You've already got the answer. That's awesome. All right. Put that in the calculator. Hint, the first part stays the same. N min is still 1 because it's asking about this. Don't remake the wheel. You've already got u sub n minus 1 in there. You should already have that. Don't delete the whole line. Just delete what you times by. And help me out. It's 14.3. Cute. And if you just put a parenthesis there, it will multiply. If you like seeing the times sign, you can put in the times sign too. That means times by 14.3. And then the last thing we haven't told it, the third line, is u and min. Well, and min we defined as 1, so that really means u sub 1. U sub 1 is what? It's 2. That's what you should have put in your calculator. If you haven't already, do it. And what I asked was, what term did I ask for again? 4th? 6th? Find the 6th term, please. And see if you and your friend next to you have the same thing. Table settings, I would probably like to start on 1, even though I want the 6th term. I'd like to see since the beginning of the table. So then I'm going to go to table. And I hope you saw something like this. Oh, wait, I was counting by 2s. Oopsie. You're supposed to know how to go back and fix that kind of thing. So if that kind of thing happens. 6th term. 1.2 E6. What the heck does that mean? Is that a really big number? Okay, so arrow over onto it, and it'll tell you exactly what it is. Do you see what I just did there? I'd arrowed over onto it. If you had written 1.4 E6 on the test, you'd get it wrong. Because that's hugely rounded. It means move the decimal over 6 spots. But this is the exact answer, 1195942.179. Okay, you've learned a ton of stuff. Honestly, the sequences today are super simple, super easy. It's the typing in the calculator that's the hard part. Okay, so let's go to the worksheet. I'm going to pause for a second while we pull up the worksheet. Okay. I'm going to have you skip a few. You're going to do 1, 2, and skip a few. We're going to skip 3 and 5 and Actually, 7's a good one, so we're skipping 9. And then 11. Can't see it on my screen here, but cross them off right now, please. I hate answering this question 10 minutes from now because I'll forget. 3, 5, 9, and 11 are all skips. Okay? Question? All right. So this one, I totally get that you wouldn't have to even use your calculator. You're just timesing by, is it 3? No, you're timesing by what? -3. But I would use that system I just showed you just to practice it. And if you understand it, it should be pretty easy. Okay? By the time you get to the end, I don't think you even can do them. Well, you actually can always do it another way. But trust me, you need to know that way I just showed you. There's a whole unit where we use just that over and over and over again, so don't avoid it. If you're having trouble with the calculator part, go back and watch the video I'm recording here. Maybe going through it one step at a time, you'll be able to do better. All right, so on this one, I'm going to write a little formula for it. It's u sub 1 equals 1. U sub n is u sub n minus 1 times -3. I'm going to even put a little times right here. And then hopefully you've just learned how to put that in your calculator. Hint, the first thing they ask is n min, and 9 times out of 10 you're just going to always use this number right here, which is usually a 1. And then it's u sub n, and you always leave on your calculator u parentheses n minus 1, so you don't have to keep retyping it. And only this part usually changes, which is what your common ratio or common difference is. In this case, it's a times by -3. I'm going to put the times just to make it clear this is not subtract. And then the last line is un min. What it really translates as is, since n min is 1, they're really saying, what's u sub 1? And we haven't told it u sub 1 yet, which is 1. Those are the 3 lines you'd put in your calc, and then you'd be able to easily look on the table and see the next 3 terms. They've already given you the first 4. They want the next 3. All right. I think you got the idea. You got some time. I'm hoping this is actually, other than the technology part, pretty easy. All right. That's all I got for you for today.